Last week, I talked about the changes that are coming to the FTC safeguards rule. Now, part of it's already been done, but the other part that goes into effect in December could cost you a lot of money. Some places could spend up to $600,000 a year annually just trying to satisfy those requirements. So let's talk about it. And everybody loves rules changes, right? We love it when the government says, hey, we're going to make this rules change. I think the FTC safeguards rule overall is a really good change. It's a really good update. However, if you're a small to medium business, some of the things that they're requiring you to do are going to cost money, real money, not $500, not $200. We're talking thousands of dollars. And that's what I want this video to be about today, is about specifically inside of this rule where I think the biggest costs are going to be, and then what you can do about it. All right, first and foremost, number one is going to be the risk assessment. A cybersecurity risk assessment is going to cost you a few $1,000s. It doesn't matter if you're small, it doesn't matter if you're large. The bigger the organization, obviously the more it's going to cost you. But to really get a good understanding of all the risks in your business, all the threats, all the stuff that you have that you need to protect against, it's going to be a couple $1,000 at least. So you have to make sure that you understand that this is something that's going to be a cost that you're going to have to incur. And that's just the beginning, because as we go down this list of things that you need to do, it gets a little bit more expensive. Number two is going to be, you got to maintain a log of all authorized and unauthorized access to your systems. This is something that you're going to have to implement in software. It's going to be a security information event management system, so SIM, and it's going to be something you have to get from a provider. You need to have that on all of your systems, or you need to be able to review those logs for every system that you use. So if something doesn't necessarily tie into that SIM, you're going to have to go through and look at a list of the logins and make sure that they're being handled properly. This goes also to third parties. If a third party doesn't give you that list, they need to be doing that, and then you have to validate that they're actually doing that. The one, that's a time commitment, and two, that's also a software/monthly commitment for storing those logs. That's a big change for small and medium businesses who probably aren't doing that today. But the next one is where the real cost comes in. So number three on our list is continuous monitoring of your systems, or regular monitoring. This is where it gets interesting. A lot of IT providers out there are going to say, hey, I have a EDR, which is endpoint detection response, or an MDR, managed detection response, and I have SIM tools. We satisfy this requirement. Not so fast. The actual regulation talks about how you have to monitor for security threats. So you have to do threat hunting, and you also have to detect misconfigured systems. So you have to be looking at the configurations of every system that touches that data. EDRs don't do that. MDR doesn't do that. Neither does a SIM. And then on top of that, you have to do a vulnerability assessment. Most of those tools don't do that. So unless you're doing that, you're going to fall into the second half of this. So if you do continuous monitoring, if you have all those things, cool, you're satisfied the requirement. However, if you can't afford that, which could be prohibitively expensive for companies, some companies, it might cost $200,000 a year to do this, $600,000 up to $600,000 a year for a mid-sized company. You could choose to do a penetration test and semi-annual vulnerability assessments to look for all vulnerabilities in your network and on your systems to make sure that you're at least patching the ones that are known. However, this got you there. The minimum cost you're usually going to incur for a penetration test is $10,000 if you're a small company. Now, that could easily exceed $100,000 as you get larger, or even more. So you have to do that once a year. Now you have to talk about, okay, now I got to do these vulnerability assessments. Well, guess what? Vulnerability assessments can run anywhere from $2,500 to $10,000 each. So now you're incurring another $5,000 to $20,000 or more twice a year. So now we're to a point where at the low end, you might be at about $20,000. At the high end, you could be well into the six figures. If you haven't priced your products and your services to account for that, that's a big hit. And they don't make an exclusion for being small. So you need to have a plan. You need to understand what that means for your business and have a plan going forward to make sure you can satisfy that requirement. And I think the fourth thing that's going to cost you probably the most is just time, is keeping the security program current. Every time you make a change, every time there's employee turnover, if you add something to the system, you got to make sure you update that plan. And it's going to be some work. It's going to be a lot of human capital that's going to have to go into that. Even if you outsource it, you still need somebody inside your organization to take on this role and make sure that they're doing it appropriately. So you have to take into account for the time that's going to take. So if you don't have the bandwidth right now, you may have to either hire somebody to offload some work to somebody else so that somebody inside your company today can take that on, or you may have to hire another person completely. That can add up really quickly, especially for small business. So those are the four things I think are going to cost small businesses and medium-sized businesses the most. If you work with a traditional IT company, you're going to be hard-pressed to satisfy all those requirements. The problem is if you work with just a security company, you also may be hard-pressed to satisfy all those requirements because, yes, they may help you write your security program. They may help you implement it, but can they do everything? And the answer is maybe, right? So you have to make sure when you look at a provider that they can do all of this for you, or at least provide the evidence to you that you're doing this. And that way you can manage the program internally with a person and then also do the annual reporting that you're required to do as part of this, but know that you're being safe. This is a big change. There's other factors that go into this. There's other requirements that are part of this program that are really going to be a big deal. But those are the ones I think are going to cost you the most. So even on a small end, if you're a small company, you're probably looking at something like $25,000 to $50,000 a year that you're going to have to account for cost-wise, at least. And that's something to think about. It's something to know that you need to get done. If you don't think you fall under this, great. But if you fall under this, that's something that you're required to do. Be mindful of that and know that you're going to have to budget for this. You're going to have to find a provider that can help you do this, or you can do it internally. But a lot of stuff you're not going to be able to do internally. Continuous monitoring systems, that requires software and expertise that most companies aren't going to have internal. So I hope this was helpful. Hope this was informative to you. Next week is going to be the first part of October, Cybersecurity Awareness Month. We got a lot of stuff planned. We have a surprise coming up. I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag yet, but it's a surprise. It's coming. It's a change for us as a company internally. Coming in October, we'll have a big announcement coming soon. And until next time, stay cyber safe.